Chapter 1, Welcome to Synapse Daily. Today, we enter a ghost world. This world was deleted from every map. Imagine living in total, absolute secrecy. No address exists for your humble home. Your family cannot ever visit you here. This was the dark reality of Sarov. In 1961, everything changed forever. The expansion began deep within the shadows. We are unearthing heavy Soviet secrets today. Stay tuned for a very dark journey. You are walking through a restricted gate now. Feel the cold wind of the Russian forest. This forest hides a massive, nuclear heart. Thousands of people worked in total silence. They were ghosts living in a real city. The Soviet Union kept them perfectly hidden. Satellites could not see through the thick fog. Every street had a hidden, secondary purpose. Even the trees seemed to have ears. No one spoke of the outside world. The city of Sarov was a locked vault. It held the keys to global destruction. Are you ready to hear the truth? The truth is heavier than lead blocks. We will peel back the Iron Curtain. Discover the city that officially never existed. It was a masterpiece of state paranoia. Welcome to the center of the Cold War. Chapter 2, The Birth of Arzamas-16. Sarov had a very dangerous hidden name. They called the site Arzamas-16. It sat deep within a forbidden forest. Heavy barbed wire surrounded every single soul. Why did a holy monastery become hell? The peaceful monks were replaced by physicists. Ancient prayer was traded for nuclear fission. This place became the brain of Russia. Security was much tighter than a tomb. No one left without high-level clearance. Guards watched every movement from the towers. The perimeter was a ring of steel. Scientists arrived in black, windowless buses. They left their old identities behind them. Inside, the world was strangely different. The Soviet state provided every possible luxury. You could find fresh fruit and meat. These things were rare in other cities. But the price of bread was silence. You could never mention your real work. Your letters were read by the KGB. Your phone calls were always recorded. It was a life of golden chains. Arzamas-16 was a factory of genius. It was also a prison of ideas. The forest kept the deadly secrets safe. One wrong word led to the gulag. Fear was the foundation of the walls. Chapter 3, The Year of Transformation. The year 1961 was a pivotal moment. The Cold War reached a boiling peak. Moscow demanded much more destructive power. Sarov had to grow almost immediately. New, massive laboratories rose from the mud. Thousands of scientists flooded the secret gates. They lived in a strange, golden cage. There was plenty of food for everyone. However, there was zero personal freedom. How much would you trade for comfort? The expansion was a silent, massive explosion. Construction crews worked under the moonlight. They built bunkers deep into the earth. The sky was filled with gray smoke. New apartment blocks rose like jagged teeth. Families moved into the restricted zone daily. They brought their hopes and their fears. The laboratory floors were polished and cold. New equipment arrived from secret German factories. The budget for Sarov was truly limitless. 1961 redefined the limits of Soviet science. The city became a sprawling, hidden hive. Workers felt the pressure of the Kremlin. Orders came directly from Nikita Khrushchev himself. Failure was not an option for anyone. The expansion changed the forest forever. It was a race against the Americans. Every second was a heartbeat of war. Chapter 4, The Tsar Bomba Connection. The world's biggest bomb started right here. Scientists designed the terrifying Tsar Bomba. It was 5,000 times stronger. Hiroshima looked very small by comparison. Sarov engineers worked every day and night. The 1961 expansion supported this beast. They pushed the absolute limits of physics. Every single calculation carried a heavy weight. One mistake could erase the entire city. The tension was thick and very suffocating. The bomb was a monster made of steel. It weighed 27 tons of pure terror. Special planes were modified for the mission. The pilots knew they might not return. Inside Sarov, the final assembly was quiet. Men touched the metal with shaking hands. They knew the power of the sun. The 1961 expansion made this possible. New testing halls were built for radiation. The city was a cradle for fire. How does it feel to hold lightning? The designers lived in a constant fever. They were creating a tool for icons. It was meant to shock the West. The shadow of the bomb grew long. It covered every street in secret Sarov. The world was about to witness hell. And Sarov was the dark birthplace. Chapter 5: Life Behind the Wire. Children played near heavy, secret bunkers. They saw armed soldiers every single day. Their parents spoke in very hushed tones. The city was a perfect socialist utopia. Stores were full of many rare goods. Yet, the high walls were always there. You could not mention the city name. Sarov did not officially exist on maps. Letters were strictly censored by the KGB. Personal privacy was a dead concept here. Every citizen was a part of the machine. The expansion in 1961 added new schools. These schools taught advanced physics to toddlers. The state groomed every child for science. Playing hide and seek was very difficult. Guards watched the playgrounds from the towers. You never asked about the smoke outside. You never pointed at the gray trucks. The silence was a collective, heavy burden. People lived in clean, modern apartments. They had TVs and record players too. But they had no outside phone lines. You lived in a bubble of steel. The forest was beautiful but very deadly. Wolves and soldiers shared the same woods. One step too far meant a bullet. Life was comfortable but completely hollow. Every smile was watched by hidden eyes. The state owned your very soul here. Chapter 6: The Invisible Architecture. Architects built for extreme speed and secrecy. Concrete blocks rose among the tall pines. Underground tunnels linked all the main labs. Massive, loud fans hummed under the streets. Everything was designed to survive a war. The 1961 plans were highly classified. Even the builders didn't know the whole. One secret room led to another mystery. It was a giant labyrinth of science. Shadows hid the most dangerous atomic tools. New labs were built deep underground. They used lead to line the walls. The air was filtered through massive pipes. Scientists moved like ants in the earth. Above ground, things looked very normal. Parks and fountains hid the nuclear pits. This was the genius of Soviet design. Deception was the most important building material. They used fake names for every building. Building 10 was actually a reactor core. Building 5 was a bomb assembly hall. No signs pointed to the true exits. Visitors would get lost in minutes. The city was a puzzle with no key. 1961 brought more concrete and more steel. The architecture was a weapon of silence. It kept the world looking away. Chapter 7: The Cost of Brilliance. Genius minds were trapped inside secret Sarov. Andrei Sakharov walked these very restricted streets. He dreamed of both peace and fire. The 1961 expansion demanded his entire soul. High salaries bought their quiet, loyal silence. Radiation was a constant and invisible threat. Doctors monitored every single worker's blood. Some gave their lives for these secrets. Was the scientific progress worth the pain? History remains silent on the many casualties. Men grew old in these windowless rooms. They forgot the sound of the ocean. They forgot the smell of wildflowers. Their brains belonged to the Soviet state. Breakthroughs came at a very high price. Hair fell out in clumps for some. Teeth became loose from the invisible rays. Yet, they kept working for the motherland. They believed they were saving the world. Or perhaps they were just too afraid. The state provided medals for the dead. A hero's funeral in a secret grave. No names were carved on the stones. Brilliance was a heavy, glowing cross. The 1961 expansion accelerated the human toll. Every new discovery needed a human sacrifice. Chapter 8: The Security Infrastructure. The perimeter grew much wider in 1961. Triple fences guarded the new research zones. Spies were a constant in paranoid fear. Guards had strict orders to shoot first. Movement required multiple, complex internal passports. Even within Sarov, zones were split up. You stayed in your own assigned sector. Interaction with other departments was totally banned. The KGB watched every single long hallway. Trust was a luxury that nobody had. Hidden microphones were in every single room. They listened to your sleep and dreams. Dogs patrolled the gaps between the fences. These dogs were trained to kill strangers. Sensors were buried deep in the dirt. They could feel a footstep miles away. The 1961 expansion added more guard towers. Spotlights cut through the dark forest night. You needed a pass to buy bread. You needed a pass to visit friends. The city was a grid of checkpoints. Every gate had a dual lock system. It was a masterpiece of human control. The KGB knew your favorite soup flavor. They knew who you loved and hated. Security was the only religion in Sarov. The walls were tall and very cold. Chapter 9: Scientific Breakthroughs of 1961. New reactors achieved critical mass back then. Data poured into primitive, giant Soviet computers. They mastered the complex art of atomic implosion. Hydrogen fuel was the newest, deadliest frontier. Testing happened in very deep, dark shafts. The ground shook beneath the frightened residents. They called it the city's working pulse. Each tremor meant a successful, secret test. Science advanced at a truly terrifying pace. The world was changing inside hidden Sarov. 1961 saw the birth of plasma physics. High-energy lasers cut through the laboratory air. Scientists worked with invisible, glowing radioactive gases. They calculated the heat of the sun. The expansion built massive, new cooling towers. Water from the river turned into steam. The steam hid the facility from satellites. Every breakthrough was a heavy, military secret. They were building a shield for Moscow. They were building a sword for Khrushchev. No one outside knew about these victories. The Nobel Prize was never an option. Only silence and medals from the state. The atom was a wild, chained beast. 1961 tamed the beast for the party. Chapter 10: The Monastery's Shadow. Old stone walls met cold, new steel. The ancient church became a physics lab. Holy icons were replaced by complex blueprints. This contrast was deeply haunting and strange. Holy ground hosted the ultimate, deadly weapon. Did the scientists feel the deep irony? Some say the old ghosts still lingered. The expansion consumed the beautiful, old ruins. Progress showed no mercy to Russian history. Faith was replaced by cold atomic theory. In 1961, the bells were silent forever. Radiation detectors sat on the altar now. High-voltage cables ran through the bell tower. The monks' cells held sensitive vacuum tubes. It was a collision of two worlds. One world was spirit, the other was fire. The state wanted to erase the past. They turned a sanctuary into a factory. God was replaced by the great leader. The smell of incense was gone now. Only the smell of ozone remained here. The 1961 expansion buried the old prayers. Science was the new, mandatory religion. The shadow of the cross was gone. The shadow of the bomb was everywhere. Chapter 11: Keeping the Secret Safe. Satellites searched for this tiny hidden spot. Western intelligence struggled to see deep inside. The Soviets used clever decoys and lies. Sarov remained a total blank, white spot. 1961 saw increased efforts in camouflage techniques. Buildings were painted to match the pines. Smoke screens hid the glowing thermal heat. The city lived behind a thick veil. How do you hide 10,000 people? They did it with perfect, rigid discipline. No one could travel outside the zone. No one could take a single photo. Cameras were strictly banned for all citizens. Even the garbage was checked for secrets. 1961 was the year of total paranoia. The KGB created fake cities nearby too. They wanted to confuse the American U-2. Pilots saw only trees and empty roads. The real Sarov was a ghost city. It breathed, but it had no pulse. It spoke, but it had no voice. The secret was a thick, iron blanket. It covered every house and every heart. To the world, the forest was empty. To the Kremlin, the forest was power. Chapter 12: The Legacy of Expansion. The 1961 growth defined the global future. Sarov remains a very closed city today. The gates are still locked very tight. The secrets of 1961 still burn bright. It shaped the global, fragile nuclear balance. We live in Sarov's long, dark shadow. The technology born there still exists today. It was a massive triumph of engineering. It was also a tragedy of isolation. The walls remain standing even right now. Russia still guards the forest with guns. The 1961 labs are still highly active. The world changed, but Sarov stayed still. It is a museum of the apocalypse. Modern scientists walk the same cold halls. They carry the same heavy, secret burden. The expansion never truly stopped for them. It just became a permanent way of life. We are all linked to this place. Our peace depends on their silent work. Sarov is the heart of the storm. It is a city made of ghosts. The legacy is a world on edge. History started a fire in 1961. That fire is still burning today. Chapter 13: Closing Thoughts. Thank you for joining Synapse Daily. We explored the deep heart of secrecy. Sarov was a city of ghosts. Its 1961 expansion changed our entire world. Science can be a double-edged sword. It brings both light and total darkness. Join us next time for more secrets. Keep questioning every map you see today. Not everything is meant for your eyes. Some cities only exist in the shadows. They breathe behind the wire and walls. They wait in the silent, Russian woods. Sleep well, if you truly can now. Goodbye from the depths of history. This was Synapse Daily. Stay curious. Stay safe. The truth is out there, hidden. See you in the next episode.